Okay. Those of you who know me well, please pray. And if there's long pauses where I'm breathing, you understand. This timeless story of the Magi visiting the Christ child is beautiful and captures the imagination. As I read through a number of commentaries, I found an intriguing idea repeated, and I think it is timely as we consider the meaning of Epiphany. I think it's appropriate to my time here as well. I agree that a critical lesson to be learned from this story of the Magi is to remain open to and curious about new ideas. In a dangerous world, like the one in the story of the Magi, we must stay open to God's ongoing guidance and direction. And doesn't that sound very much like the UCC slogan that God is still speaking? The meaning of Epiphany is awakening, or a sudden intuitive perception of, or insight into the reality or essential meaning of something usually initiated by something simple or commonplace. And at this point, while I find I have quite a lot to say about the Magi and their journey to the Christ child, it has to do with the Magi being the scientists of their time, science and religion. I'm really excited about it, and I know you would find it fascinating, but that's not the road I'm going to take. I'm going to take the road less traveled and share with you my own Epiphany journey over these last 26 and a half years. With you, this congregation, oh my goodness, here we go already, and especially with the children of this congregation, many of them now adults. I could say it started almost 72 years ago, come January 13th, but let's start a little further along the line. It started in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. The year was 1994, and I was working at the Berkshire Theater Festival. We had just finished the summer season, and the casts and crews of our final productions were having a farewell dinner together before we all went our separate ways. Some of us had jobs waiting for us. Some of us were still sending resumes out to other theater companies. We ran around the table to tell where we were headed and what we'd be doing, and when it came to me, I said with sardonic humor, waiting tables in a truck stop or going to seminary. What? Everyone at the table looked curiously at me while I sat in stunned silence at what had come out of my mouth. I offered an embarrassed laugh and said that waitressing was the much more likely outcome. Not once in my life had I ever considered going to seminary. The words were as foreign as those three Magi. I couldn't for the life of me figure out why I had said that. And as anyone who has been here on Confirmation Sunday knows, I was quite at odds with the church and had been for a very long time. So this epiphany was confusing and absurd. But the next day, God works in mysterious ways. Someone walked into my office as I was packing up and said, "Were you serious about going to seminary?" Oh no, I answered. I have no idea where that came from. Then she handed me a card and said that her friend went to an interfaith seminary in New York and that I could call her to get more information. Now, as is my wont, I found a private place and gave God a piece of my mind. I don't know what you're up to here, but I thought we had an understanding. I'm good with the arrangement we have, and the seminary thing is just crazy. While skipping a whole lot of other crazy stuff, I ended up making that phone call, visiting that seminary, and being ordained as an interfaith minister in 1996. I came home to Colorado, to my remote cabin in the mountains, and searched for gainful employment in my newfound career. Alas, I searched, and I searched. For a year I searched for what God wanted me to do. After all, God had pushed me into giving up theater and go into ministry, so surely there would be a job at the end of that. Oh no, that didn't seem to be part of the bargain at all. So desperate for a paying job, I stopped at the newspaper stands that are at the base of Boulder Canyon, but I doubt that they're there now. I paid for the Boulder Daily Camera. Sitting in my car, I opened up to the want ads and told God in no uncertain terms, and I'm serious about this, I do this with God, that there in those want ads was the job I needed, and if it's waiting tables, I'm going to be really unhappy. But no more waiting on God to show up with whatever they had in mind. And there, in a box, was an ad with a box around it. And there was the position of Director of Christian Education at First Congregational Church, UCC Boulder. I was so mad. I pounded on the steering wheel of the car, weeping and saying words that I can't say in church, and screaming at God that there was no way I was going to work at a Christian church. I had been rejected by the church, kicked out of my confirmation class for asking too many questions and not walking the line. And Director of Christian Education? Are you kidding me? Hang on. Little mic difficulty here. Little ear difficulty here. And yeah. And then I bargained with God again. I bargained with God a lot. Okay, fine, I'll apply for the job, but I won't play their games to get the job. I'm going to tell it like it is, by golly, and then I'll go back to the theater where I know I can go and work for a career that I gave up for you. I was mad. But I did send the church my resume, and they did call me for an interview, and I was honest in my answers and left knowing that there was no chance of being hired. So imagine my shock the next day at receiving a phone call offering me the job and asking me to come in a second time, just as a formality, really, to talk about salary and logistics. It was the culmination of 4 years of my life when God took me by the hand and led me from that theater in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, to the doors of First Congregational Church. Epiphany after epiphany after epiphany. Not all of them wanted. And here we are, 26 and a half years later. Oh my goodness, what epiphanies have occurred during those years. So many. The power of taking communion for the first time in 20 years at La Forêt Family Camp in the midst of this new community of faith, exactly 3 weeks after I started. It was a transcendent experience. Being a part of the experience and planning and building of the Faith Center, raise your hand if you remember Reed Hall. Yeah, we've come a long way. And marching our elementary children, do you remember this? Down to the Baptist church every Sunday for Sunday school. Thank you, Marty McMain, for captaining this immense effort. Reimagining, then, what we could do with this new educational building, with the most amazing classroom space and office space. I have the best office in the building, I'm here to tell you. What a blessing the Faith Center is now after all these years, and I'm amazed at all the creative endeavors it has allowed us to explore. We finally finished that project just a few short years ago, when we created the playground play park with a ramp for not only our young children, but everyone to enjoy. We've had confirmation classes, elementary Sunday school classes, picnics, and simple moments of quiet contemplation back there. Thank you, Chris, for championing the use of the Mapleton House funds to make that dream come to fruition. All right, here's where it gets hard. And the children and the families. High schoolers coming into my office and sitting on my couch to try to find the words for the transformation that work camp / mission trip had been for them. Parents sitting on the sofa in my office, upset that their youth had told them they don't believe in God. Teachers asking to explore the week's scripture in more depth and getting into amazing confirmations about faith. All the teachers, helpers, supporters, those who took time to come to my rescue on occasions too numerous to mention, and to my colleagues throughout the years, whose guidance, mentorship, led me deeper into my faith, gave me wisdom and strength, and brought me to this time and place. And then there was the pandemic, and the epiphany was flexibility, stretching like we'd never been stretched before, finding light in the darkness and possibilities when everything seemed impossible. Pre-pandemic, my Sunday mornings were when I put on my principal hat and gathered the children and sent them to their classrooms with their teachers and walked classroom to classroom to make sure all was well, every teacher had everything they needed, and all the kids were engaged in where they were supposed to be. And then COVID hit, and we figured out Zoom, and we went online. Ginger sat in one room of our house online with the preschool and kindergartners, and I sat up in my bedroom, laptop on the bed, a chair in front, and a small table next to me with my supplies. And the elementary kiddos joined, some in their PJs, some eating breakfast, some still in bed laying on their tummies with their stuffies. For me, it was an epiphany. I loved teaching. I loved being with them, being silly and laughing and reading stories and wondering together and hearing how life was for them. And when I came back, I couldn't let them go. Together, we made it through, and those kids who joined in on Zoom each Sunday are the core of the Sunday school group now. And then, there's Arts Camp, which was an outgrowth of Explore Music Camp down at La Forêt. During my first year here, Teddy Hampton, who was the director of the Younger Kids Pioneer Camp, convinced me to come and direct Explorer Music. When she told me that elementary kids produced a musical in a week, I looked at her like she'd lost her mind. I'd done theater close to 20 years, and there was simply no way. 6 weeks is what it takes to put on a musical. So with great skepticism, I directed my first Explorer Music Camp, and somehow it all worked, and I was hooked. And I'm lost. There. Kids from all over the conference would come to La Forêt in July, and magic happened. A profound epiphany for me, and when the conference determined that music camps were too large an expense and stopped them, I started Arts Camp for our kids here at First Cong in 2012. And the magic continued, and continues to this day. By far, where our elementary and middle school kids experience God, whether they know it or not, weaving in and through us 24/7 for a week. In the music they sing, the acting, the vespers, the cabin time, in their play, and in the challenge of meeting the goal of being off book by Thursday, and performing for their families on Saturday morning and at the church on Sunday. And it is a massive accomplishment for one and all. To all the music directors, the accompanists, and the counselors. I adore you all. It's so much work, and you have all done it so joyously. And thank you to all the parents who put their trust and their children in our hands. You made Arts Camp what it is today. I'm so close to the end. We can do this. Against all odds, a 15-year-old who got kicked out of her confirmation class for asking too many questions ended up here, healing, growing, and learning, and awakening to the power of what God can do, and how very true it is that God is still speaking. She was privileged to touch so many young lives and is grateful for beyond words for the trust and support and love shown over these 26 and a half years by so many of you. Epiphanies are not just for the Magi, but for each and every one of us as we move through life, awakening to the abundance of God moments that happen all around us, in hugs, in laughter, in grief, in tears. Love was the light of Epiphany in that stable so long ago, and love is the Epiphany that we share today. Amen. Not yet. And now, this is what have you done for me lately. As I leave, there is one gift that I would like to give to Leanna, who is coming to follow me. And that is this. I would like you to take out, you can wait until I'm done, the back of a prayer request, or I think some of you have little index cards in your, and on it, I would like you to volunteer to teach Sunday school. And I would like you to leave it in the offering plate. Please write your name legibly with your email address and a phone number, because right now, today, we need to separate our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds out of the toddler room and start a pre-K class. And that's going to require 4 people. We pair you up, and do you remember what we did pre-COVID? I pair you up, and then you will rotate month to month. And Leanna is also going to need some support with both elementary and youth. So I ask you, as a parting gift to me and a welcome gift to Linnea, to please, please volunteer. We're ready to bring our teachers back. Thank you. I love you all.